This podcast is sponsored by Active Skin Repair, a skin health company helping people heal with natural, non toxic, medical grade ingredients.
We are in the thick of summer right now, and you know what that means for me? I am spending every possible minute I can on the weekend paddleboarding. I absolutely love it. But last weekend was a doozy. I had an accident where I ran into some rocks on the side of the river. Thank God nothing was broken, but I did get pretty scraped up, which is not good when you're on a river for a few hours with nowhere else to go. Cuts like that can get hella infected really quickly. But luckily, it wasn't a problem for me because I was carrying my active skin repair in my first aid bag. I was able to spray my cuts up and finish our river run without any pain or worry over whether or not my cuts were getting infected. Not only that, but active skin repair can be used to treat sunburns and rashes and other types of skin damage, which makes it the perfect thing for me to take on these weekend water trips.
Active Skin Repair utilizes a molecule called hypochlorous acid. When applied to the skin, the molecule works by mimicking the natural immune response to cleanse, soothe irritation, reduce inflammation, and support healing.
I love them. They have sprays and hydrogel options, and it comes in regular active skin repair spray, kids and baby formulas, hydrating serums, and hydro sprays too. I love having the light mist spray when I'm out on the water because it dries quickly. But when I'm at home, we use the hydrogel because it's great to have on hand in the car. It works like an ointment, it's perfect. And of course, I love that all of the products are natural and non toxic.
So visit www.activeskinrepair.com to learn more about Active Skin Repair and to get 20% off your order. Use code NOGUILT. That's activeskinrepair.com, and to get 20% off your order, use code NOGUILT.
I feel like this is like a microcosm of everything about motherhood. Like we can say I don't feel that this isn't something that defines me about being a good mother. But then the fact is we grew up in a culture that tells us what makes a good mother. And so everything that we do, we are seeing in this lens of, am I good or am I bad?
Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. I am your host, Joanne Crone, joined here by the lovely Brie Tucker.
Why, hello, everybody. How are you?
We have such a great episode for you today. It is with Mary Catherine Starr, and you might know her better as Momlife Comics on Instagram. But oh, Brie, like we were just going through so many of her comics on this interview and like asking her the inside questions, and she hits on so much stuff that just like jabs you in the heart almost as a woman.
Right? Like, I really enjoy myself a good animation that can just speak volumes, and her work is really awesome. I actually hadn't seen it before you had mentioned having her on the podcast, and I'm like, whoa, first of all, I missed the boat. She's got like over 300,000 subscribers on her Instagram. So I'm like, all right, I missed that boat. But like you said, her stuff is just amazing. I especially feel like we did some pretty good voice acting on the weaponized incompetence
Oh, yeah.
graphic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty good.
It is such a fun time. We know you're going to enjoy this. And Mary Catherine Starr, she's the artist behind the Instagram account Momlife Comics and a graphic designer, yoga teacher, feminist, and mom of two. She also has a comic memoir coming out called Mama Needs a Minute, and you can expect that in early 2025. She's passionate about helping moms feel less alone and navigating the challenges of motherhood, marriage, and being a woman in our patriarchal society. She totally speaks my language. Mary's the mom to a 7-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son, and we hope you enjoy our interview with Mary Catherine. You want mom life to be easier. That's our goal too. Our mission is to raise more self-sufficient and independent kids, and we're going to have fun doing it. We're going to help you delegate and step back. Each episode will tackle strategies for positive discipline, making our kids more responsible and making our lives better in the process. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. So are you in your like art room right now?
Yeah, obviously you can see it's a total mess. This is my like office art studio. Yeah, it's chaos. It's fine.
How long does it take you to draw one of your
A long
comics?
time. I mean, it just depends on,
Yeah.
how complicated it is, but if it's like a carousel with a lot, it can take hours and hours. And, if it's something smaller, it's not. But yeah, a lot goes into them. And then, you know how Instagram, the algorithm is like sometimes no one even sees it. And you're like,
So
cool.
you're like, "Great, thank you so
You're like, "Thank
much."
Instagram.
you. I'm
Yeah.
so glad that my artwork is making it out to the public."
Yes. Yes. And yeah, but you never know what hits. So you just keep going, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you first start doing this?
Yeah. Well, so I was a blogger like back in the day when everyone had
Me too.
blogs.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So we got that in common. Yeah. So I started out blogging. I did that for like 10 years. And so I think I always include that because I think that was kind of my first foray into like exploring, sharing my life and my personal stories online. So by the time I started making comics, which was in January 2022, I'd spent like 10 years kind of telling about my personal life, explaining what's going on, talking about my husband, talking about my marriage, talking about, stress and all of that. So making comics felt like, I'm a graphic designer. I've always been an artist. And before I was kind of more of fine arts. And then I was teaching yoga and, worked various corporate jobs and focusing on blogging. So it was all those kind of things that then eventually came together and I started my own graphic design business and worked on my blog, graphic design, yoga teacher. That was kind of my career journey. And then I had two kids. So I have a 7-year-old and 4-year-old, almost
They
8 and 5.
change everything, absolutely
Yeah.
Yeah,
everything.
they do. So my blog kind of like slowly petered off after I had kids, even though I was like so religious about it before. But I still kind of had, my personal Instagram feed that was associated with my blog. So in January 2022, which just, or January 2020, sorry, right before the pandemic is when I started. I just started making these little comics and they were really just, I think I made, one or two just as like a fun thing to play with and to share to my personal Instagram. And, I had, I don't know, 1,500 followers there. It was just like very small personal
Yeah.
group. And I started noticing pretty quickly that those were out of everything I shared, which, I was sharing, I'm a yoga teacher, so I was sharing yoga stuff. And, it had a kind of that blogger-esque feel to my Instagram feed at that time. I started noticing that the comics were really getting some traction. People were sharing lots of comments. At that point, a lot of my yoga students who had been with me since my like yoga blogging days were my followers. And they were a lot of mom aged women. So, it was kind of like as I started making these little comics about motherhood for my personal feed, they were kind of like the same life stage a lot of my very small little online community was going through. So started noticing those got traction. So I kept doing them. They were fun. Then the pandemic hit. Then they became my creative outlet as I was stuck at home, and I obviously everything slowed down for everybody. I was still working from home with the kids running my business, but that slowed. So I had more time to do the comics and just kind of explore. It really was like some people it's like a therapeutic outlet, kind of like
Yeah.
a new creative way to express kind of my frustrations with early motherhood during a pandemic, all the things that we all have talked about so much now. Yeah, so I started making them. They started to catch on in, let's see, I guess I always have to jot down my timeline a
Well, I
year later.
mean,
So
2020
it's
has messed up everybody's sense of time, don't you guys think? Like, I still pretty much
Yeah.
I still
2020
feel
was
like
like
that
5
was, like
years in one.
right, well, and I also have, like, this weird time warp where I still feel like 2020 was, like, last year.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is really
It's
weird. And I
I
think depending on when your kids were young too, it like
Well
compounds that or changes that or, whatever stage your
right,
kids were in. It's
right,
also like, I don't know, it's all a blur, but it was just the really hard years. There's like 5
right,
really
it
hard
was
years. And like the pandemic was chucked right in the middle of it. But yeah, so I guess it was then July 2021. So I'd been making these comics for about a year and sharing them on my personal feed a
Mhm.
little bit more than that. I finally was like, these are really what I was seeing was people, those were really making the rounds, but I wasn't really getting new followers because it was like people would click over and it would just be like pictures of me and my family and there would be a comic here or there.
yeah,
So I decided, I wonder what would happen if I like made a feed that was just these comics. Like, would that help me kind of reach more people and be, kind of a new way to explore telling my story and online. So I made a feed, Mom Life Comics, and obviously kind of what I was hoping would happen is that they, it started growing much quicker than my little personal feed had. So I did that until well, I had about 15,000 followers in January 2022, which is like
Yeah.
2 years after I started making the comics, and that was Mom Life Comics, and then one of my comics went viral. So that's kind of, the beginning of what is now the journey I'm on with the comics, which is, kind of eclipsed a lot of the other stuff I do just because of the nature of having a bigger community.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and, like, your comics make me laugh so much because 'cause they're so relatable.
They're so real.
Like frustrations that, like, I have in my daily life, like, you capture so perfectly in it.
Thank
One
you.
of the ones, like, I was looking at too is the guy with the weapon, like, the weaponized incompetence and the tools of weaponized incompetence, and that's, like,
Yeah.
something that we talk about on the podcast here too.
And,
About that.
like, that one, my husband gave me the idea for that. He's like, "You know what would be so funny? If you drew, like, a picture of me," and I didn't make it him, I made it an any man because I don't, I don't wanna always make it about him, but he's like, "You made a picture of me doing all the things I say when I, like, wanna not do something," and I was like, "That's a great idea, yeah." So, he's a very big part of all of this, both from an inspiration standpoint and, like, a kind of, being okay with being the butt of the joke, and I think that's really what, in the earlier days of me making these, I think that is more what resonated is that a lot of them are really personal. They're like very personal stories, but what I've learned is that, so many of us are dealing with these kind of dynamics in our home despite really loving our husbands. And so trying to figure out a way to, I mean, I never went to be like, haha, this is funny and it's totally fine. I want to be like, this is funny, but also it's not okay. We need to change it. So that's kind of the balance I'm trying to strike with my comics.
Okay, let's see if I can grab some of the emotion from the weaponized incompetence comic. All right, let's see if I'm going to say a couple of the tools that the guy has, and you guys tell me on a rating of like 1 to 10. Like, am I close to what it would sound like? Ready? Oh, but you're so much better at it than I am. Eh? Eh? That one good?
Yeah, you got it? Yeah.
How about no? You didn't tell me I needed to do that.
Yeah. My husband always just will say, you never told me that. I never heard that.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm like,
Right, right. But hey, I don't even know where it goes. You know where it goes.
yes.
No, here's the one.
Yeah, go ahead.
The one, I just don't care about it as much as you do. Like, I just don't care about
Oh,
it
that one
as much
stings.
as like, I don't
That one
mind.
makes me like rage inside.
I don't mind if there's, like, dishes piling up on the sink. It just doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me
Doesn't
like it
bother
does
me.
you.
Always. Yeah.
But it's so much
Yeah, it's just
easier and quicker if you just do it.
I know I made this, but it's still making me mad.
it's
I
still making
know.
me mad. It's so funny though, like, you read these things, and these are things, like, my teenager says to me, and I get mad about that.
That's what I
Yeah.
was gonna say. Can we add the weaponized part of it? Like it's in every man, but it's also in every teen. Like, yeah, yeah. I
It
get that
is
all
an
the
every
time.
teen thing. Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, Mary Catherine, you are not at this stage yet with your children, but get ready. It is coming. Teens are wonderful. I do have to say that right from the beginning because they are wonderful and they have their qualities, but
Yeah.
it's like one of the most untalked about things when it comes to teens. It's not rebellious. It's like making you question your whole being kind of thing. Like
I mean, I
they're
feel that with a toddler, so I kind of get it.
yeah. But they're the
Well,
biggest gaslighters. Like, I constantly have to check myself, and I'm like, "Did I say
What
yeah.
what did I
well,
say? And it's funny, you said, Mary Catherine, right there, that, like, you get it from your toddler. You do,
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
always say that teens are preschoolers, but with better vocabulary.
I've heard that.
It's that same thought process, just at
Yes.
a higher vocab level. That's all it
Yes.
is.
My toddler
Yeah.
will absolutely gaslight all of us. He will throw himself on the ground and then say, "You hit me," and like, or "You pushed me," and we
No,
have
he
not
does
like,
not.
I will not even touch him, and he will act like he's been, pushed to the ground by a parent, and we both my husband and I find ourselves looking at each other being like, "You didn't touch him, did you? No, you didn't, did you?" Like, because he does. He truly
Yeah.
gaslights us into thinking that we're just, like, knocking him around, but he just throws himself. So, yes, I know about the gaslighting. It's tough. It's really tough. Yeah,
It is
yeah.
so tough. It's unbelievable. Like, I was just listening to an episode on Armchair Expert about narcissism,
Mm.
and, like, she actually says she makes it a point. She's like, "Okay, now with narcissism, we're talking about people over the age of 25."
Yeah.
And both me and my
Oh.
husband were like, "That's because everyone under there is a narcissist."
So true. It's so true.
Everybody.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah,
I
it
can't
does
even
make
imagine
me
what it's
feel
like as
better.
teens.
It does make me feel better to hear that again. Like, I have to hear
Mm.
that part because I'm constantly like, are my kids super, super selfish? Nope. Nope. They are just a teen.
They're just a teen.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, Mary Catherine, one of the things I also love about your comics is the way you really highlight the differences between male expectations in society and female expectations. And I want to get into that right after this.
Today's podcast is sponsored by MIDI Health. Hey guys, Bree here. I have two sisters. We're all within 5 years of each other, with me being the youngest at 44. Typically, when we get together, we sit there and chat about stuff like our hot flashes, or our raging mood swings, or our inability to sleep, which is making us pretty cranky. Yep, you have guessed it. We are all going through perimenopause and menopause together. And while I love doing things as a family, this is not one of them. I have to say though, lately I haven't had as much to vent about because I'm currently getting treated for my perimenopause symptoms. And I've got to say, it's been going fabulous. If you're experiencing things like night sweats or having trouble sleeping, sudden weight loss or libido changes, moodiness, anxiety, depression, or brain fog, all of these symptoms can be connected to the hormonal changes that happen around perimenopause and menopause that can start as early as 40. Stop pushing through it alone. There is help and it's easier to get than you might think. MIDI Health offers virtual, no rush visits with your clinician. Plus, you get email, messaging, and phone support for anything you have going on. The best thing is MIDI accepts most insurance coverage and has affordable cash payment options too. So schedule yourself a virtual visit to discuss your symptoms and health background in depth. You'll come out of the experience feeling heard and with a plan to start feeling better. With specialized insurance covered care, MIDI puts relief within reach for so many women more than ever before. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.
Oh, hey, everybody. It's us, Blair and Molly, your old pals from Toddler Purgatory. Two moms who are also actors, who are also creative beings, who sometimes feel stuck. And this is our new podcast, Unsticking It with Blair and Molly. What happens when your creative spark just seems to disappear? Gone. Poof. Bye. See ya. What happens when life gets in the way of your creativity instead of nourishing it? That's what happened to Molly and me. We felt like the thing that drove us creatively stopped working and impending doom had in fact impended. Totally. So we decided to do something about it. And that was steal ideas about getting unstuck from the most creative people we can find. We talked to guests about how to break through the mucky, gluey, sticky wall that can get between you and your creativity. We hear about their journeys, their successes, their challenges, and even their bougie coffee shop orders. And we're not just talking Bob Ross type paint on paper artists here, though we talk to them too. We're talking to actors, creative directors, dancers, and people who are working hard to be their best creative selves in a world that can sometimes feel real uncreative. We all have something to teach each other, so let's steal their ideas together. Join us, won't you, as we deep dive into how to unstick ourselves from the life gunk that can get in the way of our creative freedom. Pandemics, school calendars, world events, lack of sleep. Oh, get out of their life gunk. And let's get back to your best creative self. Subscribe to Unsticking It with Blair and Molly. You're not going to want to miss an episode. Unsticking It with Blair and Molly, because sometimes life sucks. Unsticking it.
Something you do so well in your comics is you really attack this patriarchy that we have, but in a really fun and accessible way. Things that help us see exactly the differences between how men think of things and how women think of things. And what I wanted to talk to you about is this comic you have about what if dads spoke about hiring household help the way moms do. And in the comic, if you have not, we're posting a
there's a
link
link.
to Mary Catherine's Instagram in the show notes. But in the comic, you have these dads or men talking about hiring a cleaner. And in each of these scenes, it's saying something along the lines of, I don't like paying someone to do something that I can do. And I was wondering what the story is behind that and what like the connection is to you in that.
Yeah. Well, so, personally, I have really been working so hard since becoming a mom. Well, probably ever since I, started living with somebody else, but to kind of pull my self-worth away from like how clean the house is. I do not believe that the cleanliness of a house reflects on the woman in the household. I do not believe that. And
Yes.
yet, and yet, because of growing up in our society and in the home I grew up in, I think in my bones, I believe I'm a failure if my house is clean.
Yep.
And so, like, what my intellect tells me versus what I feel when our house is really messy is just like I'm constantly stuck in a push and pull between that. And
Right.
so, this comic came from that place where I am always trying to figure out in our house, like, obviously, we all know once you have kids, your house is just always a disaster, no matter how much you clean, no matter how much you work on it. And I'm okay with that until I feel like someone else is gonna see it, right? I mean, obviously, there some clutter drives me crazy, but, like, I don't think I'm a bad mother because
Yeah.
I have a dirty house until someone
Yeah.
stops by, and then I am horrified, and I feel like, I can't believe they saw that, they must what do they think of me? And I hate that. I hate that I feel that way, and my husband feels none of that. 0.
I
Nothing,
know.
right?
Can I
Nothing.
just can, like, they make it
Nothing.
they need to focus okay, pharmaceutical land, you guys need to work on a pill that can, like, take and give us the guilt level of males.
Yes,
Like
and give them some of our guilt. They need some I
yes.
mean, because he truly like, no part of him thinks that the house reflects on him as a person. And so, even though I know that it doesn't reflect on me, I really struggle with it. So I'm constantly trying to like, how can I outsource? Because I'm overwhelmed, as we all know. We're all overwhelmed. We're all burnt out. So I'm always trying to figure out like, who can I hire? How can I outsource this thing so that I don't have to do this part of the house, whether that's hiring a house cleaner, which is like a whole another conversation of guilt and
Yep.
and should the money go here? Well, all of that privilege and so much there to unpack. But just on the surface, like any sort of outsourcing of anything that I feel in our society has been called like a female job
Yep.
around the house,
Mhm.
even though I don't believe it actually is. Anything that I outsource in that way, I have all this internal struggle about it. Am I a failure because I can't do this? I feel guilty. I feel embarrassed. And my husband has none of that. So that's kind of what started this comic is I was actually looking for someone to pay to fold our laundry, which I have succeeded in doing, and she has been a game
There's
changer.
services for the yes.
Yes,
Yes.
and
It's
I
good
love her.
stuff.
I call her our laundry goddess. She comes to our house once a week, and she just folds laundry for 2 hours, and it's
Wait,
the
she
best.
just
So,
folds it? You don't have her do, like, the washing
I
too?
don't want her to. No, that's not the part I need. I don't care about washing. I work from home. I
I'm
can
the
throw stuff
same
in.
way.
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
the
So
same
she just
way.
comes and folds.
Yeah.
She folds it, puts it away. She's in charge of, like, switching out the seasonal stuff for the kids. She's just like a laundry guru.
That's
She's amazing.
amazing.
Yeah.
And but, I have so much filter on that, but, like, why is it my job to do the household laundry? It's not.
Exactly.
So I'm not
Exactly.
gonna
No.
do it. So I'm gonna outsource it, and then that's created all this guilt. So blah, blah, blah. All of that is what kind of got me thinking about this comic. Like, what if men felt even an iota of what we feel? And then, the dialogues are pretty easy. Like, everything that I've heard any of my friends say or anyone online say to me, I just flipped it to a man saying it, and that's not hard.
No, it's so interesting the guilt that we feel around this. And
Yeah.
like I felt the same thing about hiring a house cleaner. And I've had a house cleaner for many, many years. And I admit to myself, like, I hate cleaning. I hate it like with a passion. And we wouldn't do it. And the first time I hired a house cleaner and like they were finished for the day, and I went upstairs and my house smelled amazing.
Yeah.
And my current house cleaners actually they make like little roses and flowers with the ends of the paper towels and the
Yeah.
toilet
We're
paper.
gonna need to picture that on Instagram.
And it's just, like, gorgeous. They do such a better job than I ever could. And
Yeah.
I think, like, from watching that happen, it's made me appreciate that, hey, like, this money is actually
Right?
being given to, like, a really good thing. Because we get so much guilt as women around money, like,
Spending
all the
any
time
money on
around money.
ourselves, right? Like and
Anything.
like you just said, both of you just said, you're not spending on yourself,
No.
like, on cleaning the house, but yet you feel like you are
Yeah.
because it's like, well, I guess technically this is, like, my job to be doing this even though no, you've got a full-time job.
Yeah. And it makes me so angry, like, at myself because I try to have a lot of grace about it, but I'm like, I don't believe this. I can say without a doubt in my mind, I do not believe that a house reflects on a woman. And yet here I am. And so it's just, I feel like this is like a microcosm of everything about motherhood. Like we can say, I don't feel that this isn't something that defines me about being a good mother. But then the fact is we grew up in a culture that tells us what makes a good mother. And so everything that we do, we are seeing in this lens of, am I good or am I bad? And
Yeah.
usually I find myself lacking. And why is that? Because I've been told that moms have to do everything and do it all perfectly. So like the house is just one example of, I think, every single thing that we come up against as a mom and like every facet of mothering. And so,
It's
yeah.
insidious too. Like it gets in your brain. How you're talking right now about it intellectually, but you feel it in your heart. It is so pervasive in society that, and you know this from being like public on Instagram, and you get like all of these horrible comments from people that tell you your like worst fears about yourself. And
Yeah.
you see them and you're like, oh, intellectually that's not true. But then you feel yourself
Yeah, you
like
feel it. You can't
doing it.
you can't turn that off,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, there was this viral thing that went. I said something about Harrison Butker, which
I
was a
saw
Yes.
very
I saw her comic on
yes,
that too. I'm like,
yes, and of course, all of the white men came out of the woodwork and started like harassing me about it and how like you don't think women should stay home or like lazy or all those things, and you hear them and you're like, oh, they're just dumb. But then I will see myself around the house, and I found myself the other night doing one of my husband's jobs because I'm like, oh, I just want to help him out. I just want to make sure. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
what is
Yes.
it doing to me?
Yeah. I mean,
So
it
it's
absolutely, I mean, I truly think it's so hard to even begin to separate what we've been taught versus what we actually believe. And I'm constantly trying to like examine that. And
yeah.
it's really hard. It's really hard.
it's
It's
really
like a
hard.
lifelong journey. Yeah.
Something else that you tackle in your comics is body image with men and women. And I want to get into that right after this.
Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
Hey there, I'm Debbie Reber, the founder of Tilt Parenting and the author of the book Differently Wired. The mission of Tilt is to change the way neurodivergence, whether that's having a learning disability, having ADHD, being gifted, autistic, or some combination of all of the above, is perceived and experienced so differently wired kids and the parents like us raising them can truly thrive. On the Tilt Parenting podcast, I get to talk with authors, therapists, educators, and parenting experts who are committed to this mission. I ask the questions my listeners are most curious about when it comes to supporting our kids. And in turn, my guests share strategies for challenges, out-of-the-box ideas for navigating school, best practices for therapies, tips for advocating, and so many thoughtful insights on what it really takes to help our kids grow up feeling seen and respected so they can create awesome lives for themselves. I know that raising a differently wired kid can feel overwhelming and isolating, but I promise you, you are not alone, and it can feel so much better. If you're on this parenting journey, come listen to Tilt Parenting. Together, we can shift this paradigm and show up for our exceptional kids with hope, possibility, and joy.
Hi there, I'm Andrea Owen, self-help author with 19 translations of my books, global keynote speaker, and life coach. My podcast, Make Some Noise, has been serving up self-help in a simple to digest way for the last decade. The topics brought in each episode are practical and easy to implement around topics such as working through fears that keep you stuck, different modalities of therapy, managing your negative self-talk, and more. We bring you guest experts, solo episodes, and I even coach listeners on the air around relatable struggles. I also do my best to weave my sense of humor into some heavy topics because, let's face it, Life can be pretty hard, and it's so much better when we can have some fun while walking through our challenges. Whether you're seasoned in personal development or just starting out, Make Some Noise podcast will help you become the best version of yourself, the person you're proud of when you look in the mirror and show up in your life. Simply search Make Some Noise with Andrea Owen wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Something else you really tackle is this body image between men and women. And I loved one that you posted recently, especially because we're in the middle of summer. It's swimsuit season. And how like men's bodies are always like glorified in some extent. Like it's dad bod. Look at him. He's out there having fun. And then you
Yes.
have mom out here kind of hiding under all of her cover-ups or being judged and saying like, "Oh, she should be wearing that. She shouldn't be wearing that." Yeah.
So upsetting. It's
There
so
was
upsetting.
I was telling Joanne about this. I don't know if you saw this too, Mary Catherine, but there was this TikTok that went around for a little while ago. It's got to be at least a month old, if not longer now, where this woman was saying like, if you're over a certain age or if you are over a certain size, you should not be wearing crop tops. I'm sorry, I'm
Oh
gonna
my
say it.
God.
Right? And it's
Yeah,
like
I did not see that.
nobody would ever say that there is a certain thing that like you're pointing out there. Like nobody would ever say there's a certain thing that a man shouldn't wear. But
Right, right.
oh, let's police women and make them feel
Yeah, one more
negative.
thing that's wrong with them. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
One more thing they're failing at is now their bodies too, and
Their
it's not just your, the shape of your body or your weight, it's also your body hair, it's also your skin tone, it's also your hair, it's also, your teeth. I mean, it's just all of it. Your wrinkles. I mean, I just, our eyebrow shape. I mean, every single
Yeah.
thing about us. What's wrong? What is wrong? Everything. Yeah, I mean, I have so much I want to say about body image that I haven't even begun to scratch the surface in terms of my comics because it's another area that I'm super passionate about. Before becoming a mom, I was like very focused on that. So I'm going to do more with that because I just think that's another double standard that's like obviously everywhere.
Oh, and
Well, it's
especially in
interesting
summer.
because like our kids are actually growing up in a slightly different environment than we did. Like early 90s is like late 90s, really. I graduated in 99 from high school. But the body image then was like you really had to be thin. It was like the Mandy Moore aesthetic on MTV's Spring Break. Now, like I'm seeing more acceptable images of bodies come out. So much so that like my daughter was swimsuit shopping. And like she and I have very similar bodies where we're not stick thin. Like they're very healthy, they're great, but it's a body I also would not have been confident to wear a two-piece about when I was a teenager. Now I am. My daughter has no qualms about it. She's like, "Oh, I like those suits and they're wonderful." And I love that that is her perception of bodies now
I'm glad to hear
because
that. Yeah.
I didn't have that. I didn't have that. So
Yeah.
there is hope coming with Gen Z with
Yes,
body
I hope so.
positivity.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that.
What else do you wanna say about body image? Like you said, you've just begun to scratch the surface.
Well, I think the kind of the next frontier as I am about to be 40 soon, later this year, and like as I start to age, for me, I've been thinking a lot about aging and the expectations around how
Yeah.
women age and how men age. Silver fox versus like going gray and letting yourself go, looking old versus looking, I forget what people call men right now, but like I just feel like, the George Clooney's
Distinguished.
versus,
Yeah.
distinguished, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Or like salt and pepper, and so that's another, I mean, I think it's all very related for me, but yeah, I think the aging is the next place I want to talk about, but I'm always coming back to body shape.
There's something about turning 40 that makes you go in that route. That makes you start questioning. And I think it's for I don't know if it's for men as much as it is for women because
They
yeah,
have
I
their,
don't know.
midlife crises,
Yeah.
things that they've, like it's just different. We have our body image stuff, we have, like, our household responsibilities. Men really have qualms about, like, if they're strong enough, if they're big enough, if they're protectors. Like, if a guy is tinier than other men, he does feel it, versus if a woman is larger than other women, that's what she feels. So they have their own hangups and everything. I wanted to bring it back to the aging comment, though, because aging among women, like, it's not a natural thing that's discussed because you look at
Right.
people like I was just watching Atlas yesterday on Netflix, which is the new J-Lo movie. And J-Lo's in her mid-50s and she looks
I
phenomenal.
know if I
Like,
look like that when I am at the I want to look like her.
but what she has to do to achieve that is unreal. No
Right.
caffeine, no sugar, like daily
Oh, I'm out
intense
then. I'm
workouts,
out.
like
I'm out.
yeah.
Right, right.
Everything for
Yeah.
that.
And I think
And
too, I mean, I'm seeing so much more. I love it because I see online, I think there's a lot more women who are being really transparent about what they do to stay looking young. So many more people are coming out saying like, I do Botox or I do this, or, I get these treatments once every 2 months or whatever it is. And I appreciate that. I appreciate people saying, like, this is
Being
how I
honest. Yeah.
stay looking young and vibrant. And, but I also feel like that's also problematic, right? Like, I want the honesty, I want the transparency. It's not problematic if you choose to do that. That's fine.
Mhm.
But the fact that we all feel that we need to look young is the
Yeah.
problem there. So not that I think any woman can make any choice they want about their body and how they look, and that's fabulous. I don't care what you do. But I think the fact that we all feel this pressure. So
Right.
whether we're doing something about it or not, I think we're all feeling this societal young is good, wrinkles are bad, aging as a
Yeah.
woman means you lose all value and you start to be ignored by society. Yeah, I mean, I just
Yeah.
think that I still have a lot to explore there, but I've just been noticing that in my peers and some of the people I follow, and I'm like, what's
Yeah.
going on
No,
here?
it's a
Oh,
really
yeah.
good point. Like, do what makes you feel happy and what brings you joy, not because you feel like you have to be valued.
Right,
That's
right.
that tricky part there.
And again, what part of that is it makes me happy versus I'm doing it because I think I have to look good in the eyes of others, And I think that's a really
Yeah.
hard line. Again, coming back to the same thing about the house cleaning, like it's really hard to separate what you actually believe, what makes you feel confident versus what makes you feel confident because otherwise you'll feel bad about yourself because you're told this is how you're supposed to be. Yeah.
I think that's really the key. And it's interesting about you mentioned how people are more open about what they do to their body. There's an author that I follow and I love her books like so much, but she was getting ready to go out on a book tour for a really big book. And she made it public, like what she did to her face before the book tour. And it was like a lot of injections in the face. And I'm like, no, like you don't have to do that. Please don't do that. And she says to freshen up for her book tour and for all of her pictures. And it really comes down to the thing of, okay, how will I not be ignored by other people? How will people not make this about the way I look and concentrate instead on what I produce?
Right.
Because I think
Yeah.
that's always the subject with women. Like, if you don't look like you're wide awake and you're like put together, oh my gosh, the subject will automatically go to your looks. And
Yeah.
then Leonardo DiCaprio's out here like, what happened, Leo? Come on. Why isn't anyone talking about that? And why is he's like, oh, he's such an amazing actor. And no one's saying Leo let himself go. Where if
Right.
Leo was a woman, that would have been the conversation. That one makes
Absolutely.
me so mad because he
Yeah.
was
It's
a hottie.
Yeah, I mean, I think, but you bring up a good point. Like, it's not that men don't get the scrutiny; it's that the type of scrutiny and the amount of scrutiny they get, and the
Yeah.
judgment on like their character based on their appearance. Like,
Yeah.
people maybe they'd say, "Oh, he's let himself go," but no one really cares. Whereas if a woman can be like erased from society over time if she isn't seen as like caring about how she looks and isn't constantly trying to kind of keep up. So, yeah, it's. I mean,
It's
it's
exhausting.
It's exhausting.
Exhausting.
You're totally right, though, because Leo's income is not at all affected. In fact,
right.
he probably got another Oscar because he's so brave to go out in the
Right.
world like that, you know?
Yeah, he looks so rugged and yeah, he's been through a tough
It's
life and
yes,
isn't that so valued?
rugged. Rugged, it would be the description, and run over would be the description if it were a woman. Like,
Right.
It's
totally.
true.
run down, not run over. Run down.
Yes. Same thing.
That one makes me upset. Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
I so love the work you do, Mary Catherine. What do you
Thank you.
have coming up for you that you're really excited about?
Well, like any mom, doing a project that would take other people maybe like a year has taken me like 2 or 3, and I've been working on a book early. Well, I guess like mid 2022 is when I started this process, and my book will be coming out in March of 2025. So it's still far away, but I am getting close. So obviously, long time for anybody listening before it's actually out. But I'm still in the throes of that, and that's really what I'm focused on. But otherwise, I'm excited. Now that I'm wrapping up finally my book, I'm excited to kind of refocus on making new comics and tackling some of these new subjects because I've been so busy that I've been having to like repost a lot of old comics, and so I'm excited to kind of explore some new stuff in the next couple months.
I love it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I love all your comics. I look
Thank
forward
you.
to each and every one that you post. And thank you so much for joining us here today. And we'll
Thank
talk to you
you.
soon.
Thank you. It was so great to be on.
I wanted to sing the patriarchy song during this interview that we learned from Amelia Nagoski. And if you don't know that episode, you gotta listen to that episode. We were gonna put it in the show notes for you. But like Amelia Nagoski, who's the author of the book Burnout, has a song about patriarchy. It's like white supremacist. Like it's such a good one. I think they would really like it. And they live in the same town, Mary
I
Catherine and
know.
Amelia,
They're
in
both
Cape
in
Cod,
Cape Cod.
Massachusetts.
Well, I
Yeah, and
mean, it's not like it's a little town nobody's heard of. I mean, Cape
Yeah.
Cod, I would say, if nothing else, at least if you like seafood, you know about Cape Cod. We'll say that.
They would totally jive. I think I'm gonna actually write an email of introduction to both of them because they would
Like, you guys
totally
need to
jive.
be together. You would just
my
love each other's company. It's fantastic. I feel like that's
Mary
the thing,
Catherine
though.
could like write comics for a lot of this things in Burnout. Like it's unbelievable how well they correlate. They really do. Making connections in real time. You're hearing the ideas. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. We'll see how
It's
this
funny.
goes.
I was gonna say, like, I think a lot of times, like, we'll be interviewing somebody and we think to ourselves, like, oh, they'd be really good friends with so and so. I tend to blurt it out when I'm like, it would be us you'd be really good friends with. Well, most of our guests, like I would say like 99.9% of them, I'm like, we should be friends in real life. I know that you live across the country or in a different country, but we should still be friends.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I get it. If we can't see them in real life, I mean, Cape Cod is probably a good 5-6
I
hours away
know.
by plane.
I have
So
not been there. I think
from
that we need to go
Arizona.
visit our new friends in Cape Cod. Like, that
I
sounds like a
have
girl's trip.
been there. My cousin got married in Cape Cod. She got married in Mashpee. Shout out to Mashpee. And I was wondering I should have asked them what towns they were in Cape Cod because it is quite the big place. So
Is that like saying
it's-
like Phoenix? Like, I thought Cape Cod itself was a city.
No, Cape
It's an
Cod
area?
is like it's an area. It's like the little those of you who cannot see my hand expressions, I'm doing this little like crescent with my hand for Brie on Massachusetts. It's like the little crescent of Massachusetts.
Can you
It's
believe,
actu-
like, I'm from the East Coast, my whole family is from Maryland, and I have never been in New England, not once in my entire life.
Man. Oh man. Cape
That's
Cod
an
is where
adjustment.
Plymouth is. You could go see Plymouth Rock, which is
Eh. It was cold when they
not
landed, I really don't care. It was, nah.
it is not impressive. You're like expecting this big rock. Like think like I was expecting like Goonie
heard
sized
that.
rock. You
I've
know,
heard
like
that.
off off Astoria in Oregon. Actually, it's south. It's called Cannon Beach, is where the Goonies rocks are in Oregon. You expect that, and no, it's like the size of my chair. This rock, and it's in the water, and you like go up to this fence, and you look down, and there's 1620 right there on the rock, and you're like, "This is it."
Yeah. You're like, really? They made a big deal about that? I don't think they did. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Really?
So it's really interesting. And now I'm getting scared that people listen to this episode and I totally got Cape Cod wrong. Like, no, it is a peninsula in Massachusetts. It is a peninsula. That is the word I was looking for when I was doing my little crescent shapes. Peninsula.
I know, and the other thing too that was hilarious about this whole thing was that honestly, like when we had our breaks, we just kept chatting on and on and on. Like I think we could do like another couple of episodes with Mary Catherine alone. Like it was just talking about the whole thing with the cleaning and the stress that we put on with all of that
It's a
And-
lot.
and the ridiculousness of if men were to be having these mainstream conversations that we have about our
Yeah.
guilt. And I still want that pill. I still want the guilt pill, the one that that can
if
like
only.
Freaky Friday our guilt levels. Like let
If
them
only.
let men feel what we feel, and then we get to feel what they feel.
But then if you don't remember to take the pill, where there'll be repercussions. Because here's my situation right now, Brie. I've been on anti-anxiety meds for like 2 years. And I cannot take my med with my stomach meds because I have all issues. And so I frequently don't remember if I've taken my med or not. And I'm
Oh.
in that situation today. And it has such a half-life, the med I'm on, that like I get brain zaps if I don't take it. And so I'm feeling a little weird right now, but there's no brain zap. So I'm like, did I take it? So I'm wondering, like with the guilt pill, I'm like, if you don't take the guilt pill, will there be repercussions? Like, are we going to have a chemical dependency here with no guilt? Like,
No, it's gonna be like Freaky Friday. It's a one-day thing. Like,
it's a one-day thing, okay.
thing. Or actually, I
Got
guess
it.
Freaky Friday is like a week, isn't it? Like, you have to trade back by next Friday. So, yeah, that would be my only fear, to be stuck without, like, well, I don't know if it'd be a fear. That actually might be a good thing, being able to, like, permanently offload the guilt you feel for crap that's not your job. So,
yeah,
but
exactly.
that's our goal.
She gave me an idea for an Instagram reel, my
Oh,
most
she
recent
did.
Instagram reel. And guys, we're recording this on May 30th, so you're gonna have to really go back on Instagram to find this.
I'll put
But
a
it
link to
says-
it in the show notes.
It says being a good mom does not mean you have a clean house.
True
Or
that.
something like that. And then I jump over the words because it's Instagram reel.
Because that's your new
to do
favorite,
something
like, feature
interesting.
right now. It's cool.
It is my favorite thing to do on Instagram Reels. It looks so cool. I could go like back and forth of like, ha ha. I love it.
I love it. I love it. So yeah, so I'll have a link to that, or there is a link to that in the show notes. There's also a link to Mary Catherine's Instagram for Momlife Comics. And I'm hoping we get to have her back when she writes her book. I want to see her book. She was saying it's
Yeah.
going to be mainly a lot of the graphics, and I'm excited about that.
That'll be exciting. And until next time, remember, the best mom is a happy mom. Take care of you. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks for stopping by.
Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.